Salut! It's a Wednesday. The sun is shining. Well, it is here. If you're watching all over the world, of course, we don't know what the sun is doing. Could be nothing. Wednesday, the last day of July. What a brilliant summer it's been, said nobody ever. Anyway, I'm Russ Kane. This is the Midday Show. Welcome along. I hope you're watching all over the world. You're watching on YouTube. You're watching all over the place. I don't know why. They make life so difficult. They change the rules. They change the way we're able to stream, and it's really doing my nut in. Speaking of nuts, ladies and gentlemen, you see him often commenting on the show. And as Neil had to do something very important today, I think it's sock sorting day in the Neil Long household, I invited one of our regular listeners and a professional broadcaster to come and co-host with me, and I'm absolutely thrilled. Ladies and gentlemen, Fat Scotty, Scott Lyons.
Good afternoon, Russ. How are you?
I'm well. I'm okay. How are you?
Wonderful. Good as good as anybody can be. It's the same as you. It's very hot, very sticky here in the West Midlands. It's
The West Midlands.
yes.
Are you up in the West Midlands?
As you can tell, I've managed to very slightly rid myself of the Midlands twang, but it still drops out when I go and see Mum and Dad. So it's
you have no Midlands accent at all, which is like
yes,
amazing. When I was training as a celebrant last September in 23, one of the trainers was definitely from the Black Country, and it was just, and we've become good mates. Her and her partner, business partner, and one's Scottish and one's from the Midlands, and it's just very interesting. Oh, there we are. So what are we making of the world at the moment? What the hell is going on?
Where do we even start? I mean, yesterday, I was working from home yesterday, so it was wife's downstairs watching the Olympics, massive Olympics fan.
Okay.
And then we get the alerts pop up on the work laptop that there was something happening up in Merseyside. So you sort of dip in, have a look, and then it was unfolding that there had been this just terrible stabbing up in Southport, which I've been to Southport many times. I've been there a couple of times on holiday, taking the kids when they were much younger. Mm-hmm. And it's a lovely, leafy community next to the sea. And where the dance hall is isn't too far away from seafront.
Right.
And it is the last place that you would ever expect something like this to unfold. And from reading the press reports and the information we were getting, is this unfolded pretty quickly. And what then transpired from the actual event at the dance class, and then from the vigil that was just something so beautiful, into complete anarchy last night, which on a personal level, I am absolutely disgusted with the behaviour of the people that attended this so-called protest on a day where a community and a town had been grieving. And as a parent, I hope to God I don't ever have to go through anything like that, but you would have expected any decent human being to be able to show a modicum of respect and common sense at such a difficult time.
There's a lot to unpack there. Does it help anything? No. Does burning police cars and throwing rubbish bins achieve anything? No. But I'm going to add a caveat. I think, and I've been saying this on the show for a long time, I've said it on social media for a long time, this is inevitable. This is inevitable. Is it right? No, I never condone violence. I don't condone violence because that's the way to anarchy. And I hear what you're saying, but but there's a lot to look into. First of all, the photo op by Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer, which they thought was going to go clearly well. The PR people said, hey, let's get you down there because that'll look good. Let's be honest, we're both in the media. We know how these things work. You know, we've got to be grown up about this. We're not the BBC. We're going to be grown up and have a proper adult conversation with our adult viewers and listeners. They get down there and it goes horribly sideways because the people are furious. And instead of stopping, maybe, this is a suggestion, I'm not a politician, stopping, talking to the people who were there and trying to assuage their fears, they kept the stone face and buggered off. That's what they did. All right?
Yeah.
We could argue about that forever, but that's what happened. So that just threw fuel, I think, on the fire. The next thing you've got is the mainstream media, which you know you can't trust anymore. You can't trust BBC News. You can't trust the mainstream media. It's done. It's gone. We've been lied to so much. So when the people of the town held a vigil, which was packed, you saw the pictures, Scott. You saw the pictures, right? It was completely peaceful. When they then approached the mosque, not all of them, a large group of them, it is ludicrous. Ludicrous. And please feel free to jump in and say, Russ, you're talking out your backside. But for me, ludicrous to say far right. These are not far right people. They're just people who are fed up and had enough. And then they add to this calumny by saying it was organized by the EDL. Now, if you don't know, I know you will because you're in the media. The EDL was called the English Defence League. The English Defence League has not been in existence for over 10 years. Over 10 years. So you've got the media going, well, it was organized. They're far right, like they're Nazis or something, and they're organized by the EDL. No, they're not. They're people living in the town. They've had enough of this. They've had enough of being lied to. Now, I think, and then I'm going to shut up and let you please have your say. The government who've been opposition for so long, this is from Graham Pack, and you're making the point I agree with. Graham says this: Starmer and Labour are now realising that being in government is not as easy as being in opposition and carping. You know, if you're in opposition, you can say anything because you don't have to do anything. Does that make sense? You can criticise anything because you're not going to have to do it. When you're in government, you have to do it. I think this country is at boiling point, and people want to vent their frustration of being lied to, of being let down, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. What do you think? Where are we?
I agree with you on the mainstream point. I think, having worked in the media at various places, I have a lot of friends that still work in the media. Obviously, Liz Saul works in the media, a well-respected journalist. The mainstream media wants to label everybody and everything. It has to find a label, almost to sort of convey their political opinions.
Yeah.
And I, to a certain degree, the majority of the people, from what I saw last night, there was I was looking at a couple of guys on YouTube that are auditors, call them citizen journalists, call you what we will, who were talking to none of the mainstream.
We're not getting every word, Scott, I'm afraid. We're not getting every word.
Well, a lot of mainstream themselves wanted to talk to the general public. And the problem with that is you have gaps to be filled in by people at home who are seeing the footage or are hearing what you're reporting. Now, I completely understand the feeling that goes on. I come from an area of the West Midlands that back in 1985, you had the Handsworth riots, you had the Lozelle, you had rioting in Walsall, and it was
No, Scott, this is really hard to hear. I'm terribly sorry. We're getting every few words, and I really want to hear what you're saying because it's very interesting and it's a professional take on it.
Let me try a different microphone.
Oh, that's way better. I don't know what you've done. That's way better.
I moved the mouse. I'll just keep jiggling the mouse then.
All right. Well, that seemed to work. Okay. All right.
Okay, we'll keep going. So just
no, that's worse.
Is it?
Yeah, that's worse. I'm going to take you off for a sec, just for a sec. All right, and you try and sort that out if you could, because I really want you on this show, really a lot. Here's the thing. Scott's great, by the way. I'm absolutely thrilled he could join us. I just want to get the tech sorted out if we possibly can. Here's a comment coming in from Kimmy Lashmar. Stopping the winter payment when we've paid in all our lives is awful. Kimmy, not only is it awful, several things spring out of this. Where's the money going to go? On some bullshit scheme or somewhere proper? And secondly, had they said this before the election, this is what we're going to do? No, they just lied, and they lied by omission. Clearly, they just lied by omission. They knew they were going to do this. They knew that. It's disgraceful. And look, I'm not sitting here as an apologist for the Conservative Party. Trust me, I'm not, because I think what they did to this country was diabolical. All right? Diabolical. But they just have, people said, don't trust these people. Don't trust Slippery Starmer. Don't trust him. He will renege on everything and blow me down. What have they been in power? A few weeks? Boom. Everything being reneged on. Let's bring Scotty back. Let's have another go.
I'm hoping this is going to be much better.
It is. It's
loud. There we go. Fantastic.
Turn the volume down a fraction. That's great.
Right.
Very well. That's great. Right. Okay. So what we were saying is, I was talking about Kimmy Lashmar's point about the winter payment. We can come back to that.
Yeah.
Mainstream media, you're saying, has to label everybody.
That's correct. Mainstream media, in my opinion, has to have a label for everything and everybody. So the behaviour that was displayed by the crowd had the hallmarks of the far right, the EDL. Call it what you will.
But, Scott, can I jump in?
Of course.
If I may be so bad.
No, sure.
The previous week, when the mob, all of one particular type of person, I'm being polite,
yes,
attacked the police station, that's okay, is it?
That's where I was going to go to, is there almost seems like a two-tier policing. Is that you police heavy-handedly in one respect, and then you meter your policing to a much softer approach to appease the community in which this is happening.
Let me ask you this. All right, you're a professional broadcaster. You devour the news. What did we see last week? We saw our police. Now look, I couldn't do it. I'm not, because if somebody says, well, you go and do it. I couldn't do it. I'd be terrified. I know that, but it's not my job. All right? It's like I couldn't be a fireman because I think they're incredibly brave. Put that to one side. What did we saw? We saw the worst images of our police running like an episode of the Benny Hill show. I mean, they were running away. I don't blame them, but that's what we saw. Now we go to what happened last night, and they've got their riot shields, and they're all tough, and Iron Man and Judge Dredd and all the rest of it. What happened? Why? People say there's two-tier policing. There you go.
In my opinion, there's two-tier policing. I can't speak for the different policing styles for each of the forces, because one was Lancashire Police or Greater Manchester Police, and the other one is now Merseyside Police. I don't know what their tactical policing procedures tell them to do. I don't think there's a defined process that says in the event that you're dealing with a bunch of angry people from a community following a stabbing, you do one thing and you do with somebody else. I don't know, but it certainly appears to me that there were two massively different styles of policing. And the one thing that we need now more than ever in this country, given the reputation the police has for a number of different reasons, is consistent policing throughout. If they're going to be softly across the patch. If you're going to be full on, be full on. But I remember talking to well, he's now a retired police sergeant. He says, we used to be known as the police force. He said, we are no longer able to enforce the law to how we used to be. He said, yes, people were scared of the police, but they were also respectful of what we were doing.
It's more than that, Scott. They're not called the police force, they're called the police service.
Yes.
The police service. Think of it. Now, at first glance, prima facie, it's just a matter of semantics. No. It's not. It's not a matter of just semantics at all.
No.
Police service. And why people are hugely annoyed is, you get burgled, nothing. You get your car stolen, nothing. All this sort of thing, nothing. Here in London, rightly or wrongly, week after week, month after month, the centre of London has been a no-go area with pro-Hamas marching. I'm calling it what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And the police, the bit where it started, the police are holding the freaking flag, letting the guy climb up the scaffolding and set off a flare. How can that be right?
Well, it can't.
I come back to the point about this long point about the pensioners, etc. Winter fuel payment in the States.
Yeah.
It's a good point. But it's no wonder the police have problems recruiting, says Grandpa. If you want to just fill in paperwork, join the civil service. If you want to fight crime, I presume people join the police because they want to fight crime. They want to make a difference. That's what they want to do. That's my thinking on it.
But then look at the demographic. You go back to police recruitment, Ross. So you look at the demographic of what the police, of who they are recruiting now. And you touched on this when you were talking about the Secret Service in America. You want to have a diverse police force. You want to be able to represent various different areas of the community. But if you look at the types of police officer last night on the television, there were some very young, life inexperienced individuals, short ladies who've got no chance against a baying mob like that. And they were a baying mob. They'd gone from protest to mobbery. And you've got no chance in hell of being able to have a united front with people who quite clearly can't deal with the physical aspects of today's policing.
They physically can't do it. That's not being rude. It's true.
You're
5'2" and unfit, and someone's like 6'3" and built, you got a problem straight away. It's not an equal play.
Well, that's what I mean. You wouldn't employ a man of my size, nearly 6 foot tall and almost 20 stone, to be a chimney sweep. You just wouldn't do it. I'm not here built to do that kind of job. And equally, I'm the same as you. I wouldn't want to work for the police, the fire service, or the ambulance service, because it's a specialist type of. You've got to be a special type of person to do it.
Yes, you have.
But equally, if you are leaving that to the experts, and that's what they are, supposed to be the experts, you expect them to be trained to a level where they can deal with these kind of things, equipped with the kit to be able to do it. Because I was watching it last night unfolding, and for a good 15-20 minutes or so, frontline police officers are standing there in high-vis jackets with no protection. Now, for the commanding police officers, who were then standing behind the front line of defence, all kitted out, look, I'm looking after myself, you're fine. At what point do you then say, right, withdraw or get your second line of defence in, get you kitted out, you swap, get line number one kitted out, then you come back together as a collective? There didn't seem to be any scene management there at all from Merseyside Police, and I understand that they were probably there to police or to be part of the vigil and weren't carrying the right kind of kit, because they don't normally carry riot gear on the vans. These carriers that came in with the screens on are specialist vehicles that are brought in for specialist events, and they weren't there at the time. They were brought in for this.
Do you not? I know it's easy to be what they call, when I used to live in America, a Monday morning quarterback. But do you not think that someone with a brain would have said, you know what, the mood of ordinary citizens is one of fury, one of absolute horror, one of shock, one of pain, and one of fury. Maybe, just maybe, this might go sideways. We should be ready.
I wouldn't have, personally, and this goes back to the Keir Starmer Yvette Cooper point. You got to know when to quit. Now, for them, if I'd have been in their position, number one, I wouldn't have gone. I'd have done the same as the royal family have done. I would have expressed my profound sorrow and extended my sympathies. You would have made available to the community the facilities and the services they need, but I wouldn't have gone up there. It's not. That isn't your press junket now. That isn't your photo opportunity. It's the wrong thing to do.
Stupid the people advising them are.
Correct.
That's how thick they are, because they assume everybody in the United Kingdom is an idiot. They assume that we won't see through this absolute charade, and they assume that we're, oh, isn't that marvellous? No! The people told them in no uncertain terms, this isn't right. And turning up with a bunch of flowers, no, you just can't do it. And if you're not going to interact with the people there, and just getting so upset, we make it so clear it's a photo opportunity rather than talking to the people there.
Well, the one woman that was on the camera, she was absolutely distraught that these politicians had turned up, and I completely agree with the sentiment. You know, turning up like this, you're not fit to be prime minister in the way you're behaving. And it's the same for me with the police. You've got to know when to police heavy-handedly, and you've got to know when feelings are genuinely high because of a community in turmoil and grief. Personally, I would probably have sort of stood some of the police down, or at least backed off. Let them get it out of their system. Let them have their say. Let them express their anger and their frustration. If it still persists after that, and you then realise, as you've just said, it could go sideways, I don't think it would have done if the policing style had been slightly different. If they'd have toned the policing down, if they'd have done something, been a little bit more understanding. Because again, it's like when we go to work, we have to go into work mode. You don't always understand the feeling or the mood of what's going on around you. You have to sort of take a step back out of your work mode and understand what's going on. And I think that's the same with the police. Senior police chiefs are giving orders, and essentially, as a police officer, you do as you're told. There's no recourse to it. But I felt so terribly sad for the families of those children who've been injured, traumatised, but most importantly the ones who've been killed yesterday. What must have been going through their minds?
What happens is, with news, if you're not clear, I keep using the same phrase, that nature abhors a vacuum. Hates it, right? With news, stop doing interpretation and give facts. Because if you don't, social media takes over, and Twitter is so much faster. So when you come out and go, oh, the guy's Welsh, and everyone goes, what the hell he is? Well, he may be Welsh. I don't know. We haven't had all the facts. And then immediately, within 10 seconds, it seems, that these poor little kids and their parents, it's upset everyone. It's every parent's freaking nightmare. Some raving bastard comes in and does the unspeakable for no reason at all. And they go, not terror related. If that isn't terror, what is? What is?
Well, I go back to 1996. In Wolverhampton, there was the devastating attack on St Luke's Church of England Primary School, and there was one hero that came out of this, which was Lisa Potts, who sort of got in the way of the of Horrocks Campbell, who was somebody who lived across the way from the school. Again, he was he was a black person from the community. Nobody at that point jumped on the bandwagon, started, having to go at the complete black community. It was just he's just one rogue element. But again, living in an area where this has happened, you understand the feeling of where people are going to be. And it's a shame that, I suppose it was a good day to bury bad news for Keir Starmer. He's just, as you've touched on it already, he's just announced the cuts to the winter fuel allowance, and then conveniently this is happening, and he wants to be associated and ingratiate himself with something that's far more serious. And I agree, but the feeling of how the community was, and you could see the genuine frustration on some people's face. Yeah, I don't disagree that there are going to be a rogue element that thought, right then, this is a fantastic opportunity. Let's go and stoke the fire. But as I agree with you, the vast majority looking at the coverage on TV, and then there was drone footage posted on YouTube last night, and you could see that the pockets of people were almost being herded by the police back into a concentration instead of. Well, it's a kettling. So instead of dividing and conquering, you divide the people who you can clearly see are locals, and you'd be able to tell the rogue faction, and then you kept them to one side. They didn't. They just pushed them all back into one area, and you could see from the aerial footage where these pockets were.
Now, here's the thing. If the authorities, whatever that word means, but if the authorities keep underestimating the intelligence of the British people, they've got a huge wake-up call coming their way. I've been saying this for at least 2 years. Quite publicly.
Yeah.
It is no good. Everyone who you disagree with saying, well, they're Nazis, they're far right. This is madness. You look around the crowd, there's mums, there's dads, there's children, there's grandparents, there's aunties. What do you think? They're all stormtroopers. Wake up. Wake up. And what has really sickened people, and it's no point in, we've got the nonsense that happened at the airport, at Manchester Airport, right? What's the first thing you see? You see, what do they release? They release the police officer kicking the head out of the guy on the ground. Everyone goes, oh, that's shocking, right? And everyone couldn't wait to jump on it. And the MPs couldn't wait to jump on it. Then they released the full footage.
Yeah.
The full footage, which they knew existed. Not a magic trick, it's not David Blaine. They knew that full footage existed. Then it's released because you can't stop it. It's social media. It gets out there. And the whole narrative changes. Have those people been arrested? No.
No.
Were there apologies? No. Has the policeman been reinstated? No. And you understand, and you think, well, why are people so angry? Oh, gosh, I don't know. Why are they so angry?
When I've seen the entire footage from start to finish, and you expect the police, I'll choose my words carefully, not to jump on the situation, but they need the police to police it, to stop it, and to use what reasonable force they can to subdue and detain those responsible. What I don't agree with, and it's this is always goes back to, when the kid, you always taught, don't kick a man on the deck. If he's down, he's face down, he's got an old lady sitting over him, you don't do him on the deck. Don't kick him in the chops, you don't knee him, you don't drop it. Don't do that. They've got the situation under control at this point. But, like you've said to you, trial by media or social media is just far too easy. And how many times have we seen this happen before, and how many times has no one learned their lesson with it? I used to be the first.
I'm going to ask a very difficult question. What is the agenda? What are they so scared of? What is it? And that's the nub of it all. Why are they behaving in this manner?
there's two areas to look at it. For me personally, it's the conduct of people in public office. You expect the people in public office to set the right example. Okay, nobody wants to see the police being injured or being attacked.
No, they don't.
At all. Nobody wants to see it. They don't deserve it. They're not paid enough to do it. However, and Graham's got a good point there. They still haven't seen the body cams from the police. I think body cams aren't ordinarily released to the public. Unfortunately, that would give another perspective on what has actually gone on, because all the footage has come from is mobile phone footage. None of the footage has come from official sources, so it's not come from police body cams. Some of the CCTV, I believe, came from Manchester Airport, but you don't see or hear what's actually been said on the ground. It worries the life out of me, because everything has to be, again, comes down to labels. Everybody has to be labelled. If you took the colour, the creed, the background, the religion, everything else out of it, these are people who are breaking the law. They are doing something they shouldn't be doing. The police are there to police and to deal with it. And when the police do deal with it, and unfortunately for the one officer who's gone over the top with it, there's an outcry. Let the police and do what they need to do. And if you know, the only person that needs to fear the police are those who've done anything wrong. That's it.
It's, I think, when you put something in a pressure cooker, and I'm not happy about any of this, by the way, it gives me zero pleasure. But if you put something in a pressure cooker and keep the fire underneath it burning, but something's going to happen. It's guaranteed. Something is going to happen. You can't keep this lid on. It's impossible. There has to be proper change. You don't want to see, worst case scenario, civil war.
Yeah.
Less they're going to attack certain religious institutions. You can see it a mile. No, none of that's right. None of that's right. But if you treat people like morons the whole time, you will get a reaction. That is, you can't keep doing it. You look across to America, just for a minute, just widen this conversation about lying to the public. This isn't a political statement, it's the way people handle it. Right? I'm not saying one is great and one is not. Biden, the whole narrative is as sharp as a tack. We heard this phrase a million. It's great. Starmer goes out there. Yes, he was marvellous. He was really on top of it. My mother, I keep saying this, had Alzheimer's for 16 years, right? I know the stuff. You can see this man is ill. You don't need to be a doctor to see how ill Biden is. I thought it was abuse that his wife and the party kept pushing him out when clearly he was unwell. Put aside politics. How cruel to do that to anybody, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, whether you voted for him or you didn't vote for him. On a human level, it was so cruel, right? To do that. The guy didn't know the week it was, didn't know where the hell he was, right? And then Jill Biden's running around like she's the elected president. No, she's not. She's married to him. Shut up about it. We don't have that. They get Mrs. Starmer running around if Keir Starmer's got a cold. I've never understood this, right? So you've got his sharp as that. They lied for a minimum of 2 years. Endlessly. And then the jig is up. Because he's completely incapable of carrying it. He can't. He's too ill. And they know they're going to lose the election by a landslide because the debate with Trump was unmitigated disaster. So suddenly they get rid of him, and in like what is really a coup, because no one voted for Kamala Harris, right? They get rid of this guy, and the whole lie, well, forget it. Yeah, we were telling you this Charles attack, but well, forget it. It doesn't really matter. It matters.
This is the point. Is that you know, it doesn't matter whether you're a politician, whether you work where we work. You know, he's someone's dad, he's someone's granddad. He's an elder statesman. I mean, I've always been brought up, respect your elders, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent. You always show them some respect, and to see him being peddled out for it's almost like for entertainment, really. Is, you know, they're sending somebody who clearly can't defend himself or look after himself. And my granddad had Alzheimer's for years, and you could see the small, you know, those small nuances. Then it started to snowball into something more sinister, and it was at the point there where I wouldn't be surprised if in 6 to 12 months' time they say, actually, yeah, Joe Biden has got Alzheimer's. It will happen. But you wouldn't do that to an elderly relative or to a family friend. So, well, we know. Why would you do it to someone who's the president of the United States, the strongest, the most powerful man on the planet, apparently? But it's the same with this.
Trying to get the thing for years. And we know
well, no.
So let me ask you. Here's the litmus test. If that was your dad, if that was your grandfather, would you take away the car?
Of course you would. I would.
You would. I mean, you would. You'd say
straight away.
I had to do it with my father because of his eyesight, and it caused a huge rift. And I had to say to him, Pop, if you don't stop, I'm going to go to the police and get your license because someone's going to get hurt. And he was livid with me, but I knew, as horrible as it was, demeaning, it was the only thing to do before there was a major accident. And I felt shit about it. I'll be honest with you, I felt terrible. I did it to save my father, to save some stranger on the road. Right? But no, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. What I'm saying to you is, you look and you think, we're just being lied to the whole time. And then if you say that, oh, you're a conspiracy. Isn't it funny, Scott? Isn't it funny how so many of these conspiracy, well, some are complete bullshit and crank, obviously, flat earth, rubbish, right? But isn't it funny, like with COVID, how many of these people with the conspiracies turned out to be right? Turned out to be true. That's what given.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, they are very, very small voices in a large expanse, and trying to get yourself heard and to try and get people to understand your point of view based on what you know. And now, like you said, there's various conspiracy theories that have come to the fore, and you've gone, actually, yeah, they were right. It's like, well, how do you stop that happening again? I don't think you ever will stop it happening again. My biggest problem with this is that because of the way that's, going back to Biden again, because of his age, because of his status, and because of what a lot of other people stand to lose if he stands down or he stops the president, they're all looking after themselves. They're all looking after themselves, and that to me, if, you know, for me personally, I always joke with my old man. I said, you know, don't worry about it, because as I've talked to you before about it, he's got bladder cancer. He had an operation last Saturday. Everything's gone according to plan so far, fingers crossed. And we joke. I said, look, you're 76 this year, Dad. I mean, let's be honest, you've been knocking for a few years now. To get over 70 now is an achievement. I said, so go with it. But I would hate to think that if he was still working and people were taking advantage of him, that his relatives, his nearest and dearest, wouldn't step in and say, look, enough's enough. You've got to do the difficult things sometimes, and for the benefit of others around you. I mean, I've just renewed his licence for him. He's got to apply for his licence every 3 years. And I've said, are you sure you're okay still to drive? I went with him this year to buy himself a new car. He was happy with it, checked his eyesight. You do all the sanity checks to make sure
How is that Lamborghini working out?
He's all right, but the door's a bit of a pain to pull down from up above your head.
You probably help me.
I wouldn't get in it. Don't let me having a Lamborghini, even if you left it to me in his will, I still wouldn't be able to get in or out the damn thing. I'd be in it. I'd die in it because I wouldn't be able to get out again.
Now let's go. There's a point that came up some time ago. Where are we?
Winter fuel.
This is winter fuel. Huge problem created by this fact that different areas run their own systems and police differently. It's obvious that the Met Police, probably other groups of police have been politicised, guarantee. Mayor Khan of London's a lot to answer for, not my man. Mind you, I wouldn't want to be, well, none of us want to be a police officer, but this was the point that Kimmy was making. Would you read that for me?
Yes. I'm just trying to find, is this one from Leslie de Meza?
For a very long time.
Along with other people, have known that a number of pensioners did not need the winter fuel payment, and people in that position wanted to pay it back, but there was no facility to allow people to do it. With 21st century technology, that is or was ludicrous, and surely it would take an Einstein. Wouldn't take an Einstein to ensure those pensioners in need get the payment while those who are not in need don't receive it. And that's a good point. Also, I mean, my dad's worked all his life. He's got a modest, and it's a very modest saving for a rainy day, and he's actually said from day one, even before everything else happened with his bladder cancer, he said, look, me and your mum have got a modest savings. Those are put aside first and foremost for our funerals, because we don't want to pass the cost on. We don't want you worried about having to deal with us. He said, so anything that he's left after that and the house, we'll have a chat about. I said, well, we don't need to chat about that yet, because you're a stubborn old so-and-so and you're not going anywhere anytime soon. Well, that's a good point, though, is that people are given a handout, and for those who don't want or don't need it, who want to pay it back, then straight away, there's no facility to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting. The problem is, people didn't like, in London, just for London for a second, I know people all over the world, but people didn't like Cressida Dick, who was head of the police. She left under somewhat of clout, and they replaced her with Sir Mark Rawley, who seems to be, prima facie, a million times worse.
Yeah.
And what you've got is political placements rather than people with their ability. I'm not saying he's not able. That's not what I'm saying at all. You want proper policing. You don't want it to be an arm of the Mayor of London and they're all in cahoots, which is how I'm not saying it is, but it's how it comes across.
Yeah.
It's how it is perceived by the public. That you can have people marching every Saturday, screaming for death, screaming for destruction, screaming for murder, wanting to chop people's heads off. Fine. Waving Union Jack, not so good. I don't understand. I don't know what people are supposed to do. And when it boils over, it turns out into what we saw last night. It's understandable. It's deeply regrettable because one should never advocate violence. Just not.
Not at all. Not at all.
It solves nothing, but really it's just a way of the public. Only way I can say, they know perfectly well, they're not morons. Burning a police car isn't going to solve the problem. It's not going to bring the little girls back.
No.
It's not going to give anybody 1 minute of comfort, but it's the only way. This is my interpretation. That they could say, enough is enough. Do something. You're in charge. Do something. What do you want us to do?
The problem you have is a lot of these senior police officers, be it chief constables or the Met Commissioner, haven't been on the front line policing for a very, very long time, or when they were, the world was a massively different place. I mean, even 5 years ago, the world was a massively different place. So you're expecting people who are detached from policing of today to manage a police service in a world that they don't understand. And for all the times that I've seen the Met Police Commissioner on the news, he was on LBC the other week, and he was saying, yeah, I completely understand what our officers are facing. And I think Nick Ferrari asked him, well, what was the last time you actually did pound the beat? I said, I was on the beat until 5 years ago. But there's your problem. You can't do the job of leading any organisation unless you're at the coalface regularly to understand what's going on. And there's the other problem. But Sadiq Khan is clearly dealing with other things as he met with the the team from the World Wrestling Experience is to get WrestleMania brought to London first. That's the most important thing for Sadiq Khan at the moment. He's bringing WWE wrestling to London. He's not worried about policing, and he's not worried about dealing with your struggling transport infrastructure.
See, what makes me ill and what makes so many people furious is you see the clips of Sadiq Khan sitting there going, yes, this is terrible, we're going to do something about it. Mate, you've had 8 years to do something about it. You've had 8 years. This isn't new. People are saying, we're scared. This isn't right. Knife crime's gone through the roof. And just thank God, and I've made this point many times, thank God, unlike America, we don't have a gun culture, because the murder rate in the major metropolitan areas would be horrific. Alright? So it's no good saying, oh yeah, we're going to do something. What are you going to do for it? Where's the good? It's the same as with the way they're reinventing Kamala Harris. It's like, oh, we've never seen her before. She's bright, she's shiny, she's new, she's exciting. She's the same person who's been vice president and allowed the border crisis to just go mad. It's the same person. It's not a political point. It's the way that the media manipulates the people thinking they're all stupid. That's what's unacceptable. What would happen, Scott, if the people said, you know what, if you're not going to take care of immigration and everybody turning up on the coast in a rubber dinghy, right, we're going down to the beach. What happens then? Because I can see that happening. I can see it a mile off. And I'm not pretending to be the sharpest blade in the knife. If you don't do something, people will step in, and then you go, oh, this is terrible. Yeah, well, it's coming down the road. Do something about it.
It's like you say earlier on, it's almost as if they want, the authorities want that to happen, because at least then we haven't done it. We haven't caused any problems with immigrants. We haven't. I just see. If you're going to be that desperate to go on a boat across, I mean, I've never been on a cross-channel ferry in my life. I've gone across the English Channel, and you see these ferries bouncing around all over the place. I've seen Titanic. I know what happens to boats. You know, not going on one of those. But you've got to be damn desperate to do that. But equally, it's easy to stop what's going on. But because every other government is in each other's pockets, you know, you've seen the agreement with the French and the English to be able to deal. How much funding has the French government had from the British government to deal with the immigration problem? They'll take so many millions of euros a year from our government for supposedly dealing with the immigration to stop boats coming across. Am I in a railway station? I'm not. No, I'm in a side office, Leslie. Do I sound like I'm in a railway station?
Well, no. No. I'm not hearing any announcements. The train on platform 3 to Nuneaton. It's. I don't know. There's two thoughts, right? One is, this is all being orchestrated because there's some brilliant, huge master plan with Klaus Schwab and God knows what else, right? Or, there is no plan whatsoever, and this is just utter freaking chaos. And as much as it's almost comforting to think that there's some genius sitting there stroking a white cat in his secret lair in the middle of a volcano, you know, causing all this chaos. Because at least you think, well, there's some brain power going into it.
Yeah.
But Dr. Evil, my feeling is, so much of it is utter sheer incompetence. There is no plan. They know what the hell they're doing. And that, my friends, leads to anarchy.
I don't think they half of what they tell us. I mean, again, perhaps I'm just getting cynical in my old age. I just don't believe half of what they tell you, and I don't think they've got a plan to deal with it. Again, it's how much do people know that work within those circles? They'll all know what's going on, but nobody's strong enough to go, do you know what? I know what's happening, and I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to say exactly what's been going on from our perspective. You know.
Because that person knows they would be piled on so badly and destroyed. Because
Correct.
They pick up the phone to in their pocket editors of many of the tabloids or whatever, and that person would be utterly ridiculed. They'd create stuff. They've got so much money, they could say anything they like, and then they have to retract it. They don't care. They put a retraction next to the Greyhound racing results and
Correct.
389, having slandered somebody and libeled them in the front page. That's how it works. They don't care. They're cash rich, and they know the individuals are. You know.
Yeah.
You know, they knew that way back. Silly example with Elton John. They said they told some complete pack of lies about Elton John, and they took a calculated mathematical risk. How many more copies of the newspaper are we going to sell if we do that? X. What's our biggest exposure when we get, have to apologise? Millions. Okay, it's worth it. They splash it on, knowing full well it's a lie. Elton John sues. He gets something like £1 million, and they're still ahead. They're still financially ahead. Wow, that's not news.
Well, there was that drama that was on BBC called Press. I mean, that played out exactly what you just said. It was a perfect example of how the press works, the tabloid press. Again, for me personally, I'm not sort of as involved in journalism as like Liz Saul is. I mean, she's a journalist by the strictest, in the strictest fashion. We sort of just skirt around the outsides and have to present sort of news stories and just have a chat about, commentate on it, and then just sort of play some music afterwards. That's I've got the easy bit. I'm not a serious journalist whatsoever. I'm not that good enough for it.
That's not good, but you've chosen not to be. Same as I've never wanted to be a journalist, ever.
I just find that, and like you just said, making that calculated risk. I mean, whether it's something we're able to talk about, but the other big news story that I've still looked at the 24 hours is that Hugh Edwards from the BBC.
Be very careful of that, because presumably that's going to be sub judice.
It is, but it's people.
Lions, walk around it gently.
I'm just talking about the comment about people in the know. Let's just suppose this has been going on since 2020 till 2022. You are surrounded by a huge circle of colleagues, friends, workmates who you work with day in, day out. I'm sure there's a few stories that some people who know me could tell, But at what point that's right, Graham, that's correct. But at what point do you stand up and be the person that lets the cat out the bag?
I'm not allowed to say. I was told how that situation arose. I would be betraying a confidence, which I will never do. If somebody tells me something in confidence, it remains so. I was told in detail how that unfolded and how it was handled and mishandled. That's all I can say. I cannot go any further.
No.
If it comes out in the papers or the news,
It comes out.
Fair enough. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I can't do tittle tattle, and I can't betray a friend. So, yeah, it's shocking. You're thinking, well, wait a minute, what about Jimmy Savile? When I was a kid, everyone said, well, he's not dodgy.
Everybody was saying it.
I was like, I don't know, what was I, 18 or 20 or something? Everyone said, oh, he's really. I just want to say about the Hugh Edwards case that I'm going to be very careful. The images, anything to do with children, is 100% unacceptable. There is no wiggle room. There is no grey area.
No, not at all.
These were, as I understand, images that are of the worst. There's never a good kind. These are the worst.
There was 41 indecent images. There was 377 sexual images, of which 41 were indecent images of children, 7 of which were category A, which are the most serious.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to gently say.
Yeah.
much agree. I think what the actual. I'm not going to say what it is.
No.
But you're all grown up. It's as bad as it could possibly be. This is very pleasant. That is a big compliment to you. Really enjoying this broadcast. Scotty has the perfect measured tone, which is full of energy and a great clarity to his voice. Really refreshing change. I think that's a slap in the face, but it's okay. That's all right. I don't mind.
Cheers, Leslie.
Yeah. What you're saying, but people can do stuff that other people don't know. That is true. You don't
Oh, you can.
Gets up to. You could have lunch or dinner with someone and say, "What a nice person." They turn out to be a mass murderer. What the hell are you supposed to know? I mean, that's true. But it's always the BBC.
Well,
The reason it calls us, it's our money. It's our money. That's why it calls us.
I was a huge advocate and loved the BBC. I thought it was always the benchmark for us as we were doing our training.
That's the point.
It was always the benchmark. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was the way in which the Savile situation was dealt with, and then more recently, as you've seen me posting, in the way that the BBC local radio network has been completely decimated. I've seen some great people that have worked in local radio for donkey's years, who have built up great listenership, and within the radio industry, you'll understand this, Russ. Radio stations have their figures published and audited. They call them radar. Now, whilst the BBC has it done, they don't benchmark by it, but the figures that some of these stations were releasing were competing heavily with some of the top stations, so the likes of your Capitals, your LBCs, your Smooths, your Greatest Hits radios. They were on par with them, but the BBC doesn't use radar as a benchmark for its presenters. What the BBC does is the next best thing. Does it tick the right box in terms of its demographic? Does it tick the right box in terms of its its equality and diversity is being matched? And we've seen, especially where I'm in the West Midlands, that they have had, I think it's six big local radio breakfast presenters coming and going, which has killed it now. And I still talk to one guy who used to present on BBC Radio Shropshire, fantastic journalist, comes from a journalistic background, and his mental health has been shot to pieces. He is a shadow of his former self because of the way in which he was let go and the way in which he was treated. A respected and revered journalist.
The other thing is, it's so easy for the metropolitan idiots. Your Radio Shropshire. Oh God! What type of biscuit do you like with your tea? It isn't that at all. Not everybody lives in Islington, right? Not everybody lives in Notting Hill. There's a million areas around the UK. I have always been, and you and I have talked about it, an enormous advocate of local radio. Why?
Yeah.
Because radio is your friend. That's the first thing. 2, local knowledge. 3, a feeling of community. That's what it was about. That's what local radio, even BBC Radio London, that's what it was about. A community, someone who knew the area, who could discuss it with your friend in the corner of the room, talking to you. Just you. And what the BBC did to save money is demolished these local radios. And I'm going to say how I think they did it. By, in some instances, not every instance, in some instances, making the changes so diabolical that the listening figures went down the toilet, and then they had the ability to say, oh, look at the figures, they're terrible.
Yeah.
You've made some shocking decisions based on lunacy. And as you said, Scott, getting rid of some great, and I have no skin in the game, so it's not me moaning about it, I don't work for the BBC.
No.
Getting rid of some fantastic.
And again, the same as the police. these are being managed and run by people who don't do the job. The current director for local radio at the BBC, to my understanding, has never broadcast on local radio. He doesn't know or understand what it is to be a local broadcaster, doesn't understand the effect that local radio had. I mean, you worked at Capital for, good Lord, 20 odd years. That station at Capital owned London. The people of London knew where to turn to. Wasn't BBC London, wasn't GLR as it was called, Greater London Radio. It came to Capital, and the same in the West Midlands. It was Beacon, it was BR&B. Yep. In Manchester, it was Key 103. People turned to the station that knew their town or city.
Yes.
And unfortunately now, very few people have got somewhere to go to. And what was that? What was that last comment that came up on the screen? Then I just missed that one. Sorry, Russ.
Restaurants paying this, and there we go. And not paying women doing the same job, the same pay.
Wow. Correct. I completely agree with you.
By the way, in case you think this is just bashing the BBC, I just do want to say that a lot of the commercial local radio stations were bought up by the huge groups, Global, Power.
Yes.
Bought them up. And what did they do? They went round and got rid of them. Why? Because it saves money. So they can get one person sitting in Leicester Square, for example, going out to dozens and dozens of local radio stations. They get rid of the salary of dozens of broadcasters. Does that person sitting in Leicester Square know what's going on in Frinton? I don't know, Norfolk? Of course not. Any more than I would, or Scotty would, or you would. Of course they do.
Well, you'll understand this from the sales perspective. It was done as well to appease the sales houses, so they don't want local advertisers. They want the big, brash brands. They want the British Airways. They want the BMWs. They want the Kellogg's of the world. They don't want, Fred Smith's Butchers down the road advertising and get bacon for thumbs. But we do. We do.
That's the point. And what is it? We don't want boxes of ticks, we want quality, says Kimmy Lasher. You're absolutely right. What is so wrong with the local community? Why
for me, it's everything.
They seem so determined to destroy local community. There's nothing wrong with it. It is fine for different areas of the country to have their own way. It's the way it should be.
Well, now community radio is having a massive resurgence. The station I work for up in Staffordshire has now started to forge a path through for the voids being left, because the local stations in Staffordshire are now broadcasting from Birmingham, from the big central hub that have been running Birmingham, and you can't effectively run a local station from Birmingham that broadcasts to Stoke-on-Trent, Stafford or in Shrewsbury. It just doesn't happen. And for me personally, even now, I'm still sort of a generation where I remember pre-technology and pre the internet, where your community was everything. If you wanted something, somebody somewhere knew where and how and when to get it. And that's still the case now. I couldn't function where I live in my street without the help of the local community. It's everything. And that, I think, is another reason why some of the problems that we have with policing stems back, is that they don't ingratiate themselves into and they don't understand the community in which they're policing, because if they did, they wouldn't have made such a hash job of it last night, really.
That, I think, is on that point, which is a very salient point, is where we're going to leave it. Scott Lyons, I'm refusing to call you by what you call yourself, because I don't...
Fat Scotty, do it, just do it. Even my mum calls it me now. She knows it. Right. Very quickly, when I worked for my first radio station, there were two Scots in the building, and they used to ring up and ask to speak to Scott. They rarely get the wrong one, so I just said, look, I'm bigger than you are, just say it's Fat Scotty, and then we know who's who. And that was it. That's where it came from. And over the years, it's just stuck. So now, when I'm on the radio, and my mum listens, she says, well, who's on the radio? Fat Scotty. Yes, that's me, Kimmy. Yeah, oh, you're Fat Scotty, yeah. She's even got the spelling right, look. Bless her. So that's where it came from. And it's not meant to be self-deprecating. It was just a label. We get again back to labels. It was easy for people to differentiate between the slim, good-looking one and the hairy, big, fat lad who kept answering the phone. And that's where it's stuck. It's stuck in. My clients call it me. It's crazy.
I had no idea. I just thought people
Yeah.
rude. Scott Lyons, you are welcome here any time. Thank you so much for supporting the Midday
Thank you,
show.
Russ. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're sitting been alongside you.
You're a voice of reason. The reaction has been terrific, and I've loved this show. We're going to do it again, promise you.
Please. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Everybody have a wonderful Wednesday. I can't be back on Friday. Yep, another beautiful to officiate. But Phil, Dave, and Chantel will be here on Friday. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.